Dave Anderson here with the Fisherman magazine. It's July 20th. These are your headlines. Hearing about some really good action coming from the canyons right now for yellowfin and big eye tuna. We're also hearing about some really consistent striped bass action around the Monomoy Rips and some really nice fluke coming out of western Long Island Sound. Stay tuned for all that and more on this week's New England Fishing Forecast.
The fishing news is sponsored by these fine partners.
I'm Captain Greg DeBrule of the party boat Blackhawk out of Nantucket, Connecticut. You've seen us at the sport shows, you've seen us on TV, magazines, newspapers. Now you can come fish with us, okay? We're fast, we're clean, and we're comfortable. And besides that, we catch them, ask around. Come visit us at blackhawksportfishing.com. We'll save a seat for you.
Before we begin, we got a couple of news items to throw your way, and the first one is a charitable giant bluefin tuna tournament that I want to raise some awareness on. It doesn't start until August 30th, but it's for a really good cause. It's to benefit the Dion Fund, or the Dion Foundation, I should say. And the Dion Foundation was founded after the Dion family had two kids diagnosed with a very rare form of muscular dystrophy that has no cure and very sadly is fatal. So they put this foundation together to try and, find a cure for that and some of these other rare childhood diseases that have no cure. It's a really great cause, and a large portion of your entry fee is going to go toward that. It's $250 per boat to enter, and this tournament has 3 days. You've got August 31st, or August 30th actually, my apologies, and then you have September 3rd and 4th. And basically you got to bring your weigh slip in from wherever you weigh your tuna in, and that will be your proof of of what the weight will be. And last year they had about 50 boats. They're expecting more than that this year, and I'm hoping to maybe get them up to 75 or something like that by bringing it up now and reminding you periodically throughout the next month and a half, because I'd really like to see. I'm a dad. I'm sure most of the guys, or most of you watching, are parents or grandparents or aunts or uncles or cousins or whatever. But it's a cause that everyone can get behind. And so if you want to know more about the Dion Foundation, you can go to thedionfund.org. It's got everything there, all about the kids, all about the foundation and what it does, how to make donations. If you want to sign up for the tournament, you can send an email to gianttunatournament@gmail.com, or you can text or call Debbie or Frank at the numbers shown here on the screen. And again, I'm going to be reminding you guys periodically over the next month or so. Try to get as many people signed up for this thing, but I wanted to start early, so that's the story with that. The other news item, of course, is the giveaway, which is ongoing. We've got one more week. This one's going to wrap up on the 26th. And so next week I'll be announcing some winners. And we're going to give away a small darter made by me. We're going to give away some no live bait needed paddle tails. We're going to give away some stuff from Game On Lures. I have seen a dramatic uptick in entries this week, actually over the last 2 weeks. And I do have a couple of photos in mind now, which are definitely leading the pack as far as I'm concerned, but you still have a week to impress me. Send those in to danderson@thefisherman.com or text them to the number on the screen, and we'll pick a winner next week. Moving over into the fishing reports now, we're going to start things off in Maine, as we have been doing the last few weeks. And the striper fishing up there, I'm really just keeping the old telescope looking right at Maine right now, because a lot of good fish coming out of there right now, and a lot of good action. So right now it seems like the fish are concentrated around a lot of the inlets, and there's lots of them, basically from Portland down to the New Hampshire border. And fishing's been very good. Guys have been doing well with mag darters, super strike darters, SP minnows, red fins, hydro minnows, things like that. Also, live eels are doing very well. And then guys chunking off the beaches in the daytime have also been scoring some really nice fish. The The average fish is probably in the low 30-inch class. You're going to get some smaller ones, and you're going to get some that are a lot bigger than that. But Maine has really been producing some nice fish. Dropping down into Massachusetts, James Jukes is on vacation this week, so I'm just going to cover the Plum Island area for him, and it's pretty simple this week. The Merrimack River's blown out from all that rain. We've got a lot of mud, we've got a lot of trees and all kinds of stuff coming down river, and that has pretty much rendered that area off limits. The ocean front and the boat guys fishing out around the other parts of Plum Island and nearby areas are reporting inconsistent fishing. There's some nice fish being caught, there's some good action being found here and there, but overall, it's one day good and 2 days not so good. So very inconsistent fishing right now. They're not seeing a lot of pogies up there, which was the thing that really fueled it last year. So they're kind of hoping that maybe some will move in at some point here. For now, they've got some sporadic schools and they've got some mackerel around, and that's what's fueling the bites. So if you can find the bait, you're probably going to find the bass. Dropping down into the Boston area, a lot of bluefish moving into that area, and some nice ones. Heard about some really nice fish, big bluefish taken at Point Allerton this week. Also hearing about some big bluefish in the Plymouth area. Bass fishing in that region has been, for the boat guys, been centered around the ledges. So you got Minot Ledge, you've got Scarlet Ledge, a few other ones in that same general area that are producing some fish right now. Guys are doing it with live eels. Guys are doing it with getting some topwater action during the days, and also throwing the flutter spoon and throwing some big soft plastics as well to find some of those fish. Surf guys have been quiet, but the little bits of news are leaking out, and they are getting some nice fish, basically from Scituate down to Plymouth, and it's mostly been the guys slinging live eels, which should come as a surprise to no one. Heading out onto the Cape, one of the big things that we're hearing about over and over again right now is just the blue fishing around Race Point. Boat guys are doing better than the surf guys, but there are some nice ones being taken from the surf as well. Boat guys are doing it trolling deep, just right around Race Point area. They're finding some big bluefish in that area, also finding some decent bass. Along the beaches, that sort of northern end of the outer beaches there, from like Highland down to like LeCounte or even a little bit further, they've been finding some decent bass. There's been some topwater action. They're also hearing about some topwater action on Nauset. But it seems like the further south you go, the more bluefish you're finding. So there's definitely a mix of bass and bluefish along the beaches there. And seals have been becoming more of a problem for the guys that I'm talking to. So you may have to do some moving around to avoid the little black bowling balls there in the surf. Boat guys have been crushing in the Monomoy Rips. There's a wide range of sizes, but it does seem like a lot of fish right around the slot size and then up to like 40 inches. But depending on where you are, depending on the depth of the water, guys are doing it snap and wire, guys are throwing some soft plastics, guys are throwing some unweighted soft plastics, getting some top water action. So a lot of bass in the area, very consistent bite, and they seem to be relating to a lot of different places. So all those rips off of Monomoy right now are holding some bass, definitely some bluefish in the area as well. Hearing about some good fluke and sea bass fishing inside of Nantucket Sound. Also heard some better reports coming from Nantucket Shoals this week. So there does appear to be a little resurgence of fluke fishing out at Nantucket Shoals right now, which is good news. We haven't been hearing a lot about that for several weeks now. And then dropping down into the Elizabeth Islands, there was a new push of bass that moved in there. A lot of these fish are in the 35-ish, mid 30-inch range, let's call it that. Guys are doing it a whole bunch of different ways, but live eels have definitely been the leader. Going into Buzzards Bay, still very good sea bass fishing on some of those deeper wrecks and bumps out in that region. Getting up toward the canal, bass fishing hasn't been quite what it was, even inside the canal. There's tons of bait in the canal, though. We're coming up on another moon, so with the mackerel and the whiting in the canal, we may see another push of fish coming in by the end of this week, so that's something you may want to keep an eye on. But for a little more on that and the other things that are going on inside the canal, let's toss it over now to East End Eddie.
Hi Dave. Fishing's been great here in the canal. The new moon kicked in on Monday afternoon, but there was some nice fish taken even before that. Staff Sergeant Josh Webster from the Air Force caught a 54-inch. He's the nephew of Mike Webster, who owns Striper Gear, and Uncle Mike gave him a 4.8 ounce Wacky Mac rocket that Josh was jigging with, and a couple of twitches on the bottom, and he was hooked into a big fish, 54 inches. Congratulations to him. And John the Chef Schmidt caught a 48 inch, and Breaking Bob Ware landed a 37 pounder that measured out to 46 inches. Bob was using a magic swimmer, so the legend of Patrick Sebile continues on the canal. I was fishing one morning, there were no breaks at all, and so I made a blind cast I was lucky it was the right spot. A 31 pounder attacked my white guppy Jobo Jr., and that measured out to 45 inches. Bill on the Grill Protos was fishing one morning, starting at about 5, didn't catch anything for hours, and then at 8:45, the ocean lit up and stripers were breaking everywhere along the canal. So Bill got into a 3-hour topwater bite, caught so many fish, he lost track, I think, all different sizes, but the last 3 fish he caught were over 20 pounds. So 2 new members of our 40-inch honor roll this week, Rob Stork and Josh Webster. Congratulations to them. Just guys who have caught at least one 40-inch this season. So my tip of the week is, if you are applying bug spray, walk away from your fishing gear before you push the button and spray it on you. Just make sure you know which way the wind's blowing. You don't want any of that poison to get on your lure or even your leader or your line. Striped bass have a great sense of smell. Some people say they can smell better than 1,000 times better than a German Shepherd. So just be careful you don't get that poison on any of that, and be aware which ways the wind is blowing. Also, make sure you close your eyes and your mouth before you spray it. So until next week, catch a big one.
And we'll wrap things up in Massachusetts by heading out to like the Rhode Island border, out around Westport area, talking to Jason Colby. He's been doing really well on really big scup inside the Westport River, finding lots of big sea bass outside the river, and some good striped bass roaming around in that area as well. So, Jason really knows his stuff. So no matter what you want to catch, if you're in that area or you just want to get out with a guy that really knows what he's doing, give him a call and check out what he's going on. And that's what I have for you guys in Massachusetts this week. Jumping over into Rhode Island, the thing that's really got people excited right now is the offshore fishing. A lot of people heading out on these nice weather days and getting, 20 miles south of Block Island, going to the dump, they're going to the gully, they're going to Tuna Ridge. And a lot of these guys are finding fish. A lot of wreck-sized fish in the area right now. And the bite has been very good. I know Coral was out there this week. She had a nice fish. I talked to Captain Connor McLeod from Tall Tales Charters. He had some good fish this week. So the people that are making the run are typically being rewarded, and a lot of times they're finding more than one fish. So that's something to get excited about. Coming back closer to shore, the Newport area still has lots of nice striped bass for the boat guys. Haven't heard of any giants like we had last week. No 60-pounders, but still lots of solid fish in that 25 to pushing 50-pound range. By and large, these are being caught on live eels, but guys are getting them, jigging with soft plastics, throwing things like a GT eel. Tubing worm is getting some nice fish too. So a lot of methods are working, even maybe getting some topwater action at first light or on a really snotty day. So a lot of fish in that area, just not so much for the surf guys. The surf guys I talked to have been really struggling and finding mostly small fish. So we're all hoping for a turnaround on that front, but the boat guys are crushing it, and that's kind of cool. Been a lot of big bluefish in that area as well, which come as no surprise. There's a lot of bait around, and when there's bait around, the bluefish usually find it within a few days or weeks. So they are in the area, and there's been some bruisers around there. And then we're still hearing good bottom fishing, mostly sea bass, from like Kettle Bottom Rock out to the center wall, and then all the way out to Block Island. And while we're out at Block Island, we can talk a little bit about Fluke too, which is, Block Island's been probably the second best spot in Rhode Island for Fluke, especially on the east grounds, hearing about some nice fish being taken. and also, a continued parade of giant stripers coming off of Southwest Ledge. For a little more on what's going on around Block and around Point Judith, let's throw it over now to Captain John Lee from JL Charters.
We've had a busy week. It's definitely feeling like the height of summer. We're often running 2 trips a day. I have lost a little bit of my Fluke mojo. They're harder to come by for us. We are seeing them every trip. We're just not seeing lots of them. We've got some good fish, like the 5 pounds, but the Fluke bite's definitely getting harder for me. The sea bass have filled in nicely. They were kind of hard to find, and now they are fairly easy to find. A lot of blues around. We've had a lot of fun with light tackle blues. I haven't really done a striper trip in a week. We have some this week, so I'll let you know. And I'm seeing sharks up on the surface 2-3 miles off Point Judith. So I bet you the Giants are on the heels of those things. Anyway, take care. Talk to you next week. Bye-bye.
Heading west out of the Harbor of Refuge, still hearing about good to, solid to good fluke fishing along the South County beaches. Hearing about some fluke coming out of the breachways for the shore guys. The scup fishing has been off the charts. I mean, that can pretty much be said for everywhere across the entire state. You get them from 6 to 60 feet of water. All you got to do is find structure and drop some bait down. And while we're talking about dropping some bait down and scup and that kind of fishing, if you don't have bait, or if you're on a great bite and you run out of bait, you may want to throw some of those fish bites, the little pieces of cut bait in your bag. Those things work just as well as live bait, and guys are crushing it with those. And while we're talking about fish bites, let's take a look at their commercial.
For more than 20 years, anglers everywhere have come to know one thing: that nothing says no to fish bites.
And then just to wrap things up in Rhode Island, striper fishing at the breachways this week was so-so. Mostly fish on the smaller side, and from what I heard, the action was not great. But the boat guys have been slaying it out around the Watch Hill reefs and then heading out behind fishers as well. Some really nice fish in that area, being caught using all the same methods that you're hearing about from Block Island and other places. Live eels, big soft plastics, they're all getting it done. And some really nice fish in that area, so check that out. Jumping over into Connecticut waters, the race has been putting out some fish. Haven't heard of anything really big. It's been consistent action on small to medium striped bass. Been some small bluefish in the area. And, when the current allows, you can get some decent sea bass out of there as well. Sea bass fishing has been pretty good in Connecticut waters. I think that 2 weeks off is still benefiting us now. So, some of these close to shore ledges, like Sarah's Ledge, are putting out fish. Some of the deeper spots off of like Hatchett's Reef are putting out fish. And then just kind of taking that corridor all the way out through Bloody Grounds and over to Southwest Reef. Anyone fishing in those like 80 to 100 foot depths seems to be doing okay on sea bass. I'm not telling you you're going to go out there and catch 5 keepers and 5 drops, but there's a lot of fish out there, and the action's been good, and there's been a decent number of porgies mixing in, including some really big ones. Getting closer to the Connecticut River, at last check, the Connecticut River was kind of like off limits. There's just so much runoff coming down from all this rain. I'm sure you guys saw the flooding up in Vermont. Well, all that water's got to go somewhere, and a lot of it's coming down the Connecticut River, so you got trees and stumps and logs and all kinds of stuff coming down the river, which has made boating not so safe, and the water's really dirty and running hard and high. It may have subsided a little bit since I last checked in. So let's hear what Captain Mike Roy from Real Cast Charters has to say about it.
Hey, for this week's fishing report, the summer striped bass fishing remains good. There's a couple different options you have. You have a lot of schoolie-sized fish. They're going to be scattered throughout the reefs, usually feeding in the rip lines. They're feeding on small bait like sand eels and silver sides. Small jig heads with like a 5-inch finesse fish work really well for them this time of year. Any small soft plastics and the small metals like the Shimano Current Sniper is going to work really well. For the big stripers, like I always say, the live bait is the key. There are plenty of big stripers that reside through the reefs and rock piles throughout Eastern Long Island Sound. And I would expect those big fish to be throughout the Long Island Sound all summer long. The big bluefish are definitely around this year. There's definitely more bluefish this year than there has been the past few years. Diamond jigs, the heavy Shimano current sniper jig, the Nichols flutter spoon is all working really well. You will get some nice stripers doing that too. You just got to get through and underneath the bluefish. Black sea bass fishing, kind of mixed results. Hasn't been great. I'm hoping that improves as we get later into the summer. So go out there and catch them up.
Heading up the Connecticut River Valley, let's take a quick moment to check in with Rowan Lytle.
Hey everyone. So with the high water continuing in the Connecticut River with more rain up to the north over the last few days, as well as some rain down here, the river's still chucking a lot of mud and a lot of debris. It's still kind of on the risky side to try and launch and fish from the river in a boat. If you do, be very careful. There is some good fishing to be had in the backwaters, though. If you can find where any of the colder tributaries are coming into the river, you're liable to run into some pike. They're pushing up into the flooded woods a little bit, so they're more spread out than they often are this time of year. Throughout the summer, they're often fairly concentrated in cold water refuges, but with as much water and habitat as there is now, they're a little more spread out than they might otherwise be. And of course, the catfish are shoving themselves way up the creeks as well. It's probably better bait fishing right now than it is fishing with artificials, especially for catfish and some of the other species. But there's certainly fish to be had. You just have to be a little bit creative with these high summer flows. But get out there, see what you can do.
And then heading west out of the Connecticut River, the further you get from the river, the better your chances are going to be. You're not going to have that dirty water, you're not going to have that freshwater infiltration, and you're not going to be dealing with as much debris. So heading out more toward Westbrook is going to provide you with some better action. And for a little bit more on that, let's toss it over to Matt Stone from Black Hall Outfitters.
The flooding is done. We got some heavy rain after the Connecticut River flooding came through as well. So you're going to have stained water out there. Depending on the tide, it's going to kind of affect which way is more stained, west or east of the river. So definitely want to pay attention to that for sure. It should get better slowly over time. There's definitely a lot of debris still out there, mostly smaller stuff. The bigger stuff has mostly made its way to shore. But what that means for fishing is that you're probably going to have to use something that's brighter, has vibration, has a bigger profile, something along those lines that's going to get the attention of those fish, particularly stripers if you're going for those guys. Bottom fishing, we haven't heard a ton of updates as far as a big change since that stained water came through. So that's a good thing. So we hope that it remains consistent and good like it has been. Sea bass have been deeper. We've got those Nomad squid tracks. We got a few of those in stock still. Slow pitch jigs, bait rigs, that kind of thing are working. 50 to 70 feet has been a happy place to start for those. Stripers, you're looking at eels, you're looking at top waters, GT eels as well, those imitation style eels. Live bunker, if you can still find those, they've gotten tougher to find as the summer's gone on. And that's what's going on here. We've got porgies still in shallow, kind of those normal summer things. So let's hope things settle down after that crazy weather and flooding we had, and let's end this summer on a high note.
And that black sea bass action has been continuing. You get out on the ends of some of these reefs in the central western part of the sound. Again, 80 to 100 plus feet of water is where a lot of this action is coming from, and action's been good. And we're still hearing about good stripers from like Clinton out to Milford in that, in 50 feet of water or so, fishing some structure, fishing some places with some good moving water. Chunking has been good at night. Live eels have been good at night. Haven't heard of any like really big fish, but definitely fish in the 20 to 30 pound class are being taken with regularity out there. So that's something you can check out. And then as we talked about in the headlines, there's been some really big fluke coming out of the Western Sound. I know Rick Mola from Fisherman's World had a 10.5 pounder this week. I got that picture here for you. So for a little bit more on that and some of the other things going on in the Western Sound, let's toss it over now to Max Finch from Fisherman's World.
This past week, we seen fluke up to 10.5 pounds by shop owner Rick Mola, so congrats. They fished a whole tide and had a 2-man limit. The flukin's not the best, but there are fluke to be had. We've seen fish, limits to like 23, 24 inches. You really got to put in your time and pound these areas. Gulp, spearing, squid strips seem to work best. Places like Can 26, Can 24, and then going to the other side, Smithtown Bay and the OB buoy. Striped bass fishing remains consistent. The bass are in their summer mode, so live bait works really well early morning, evenings, and then into the nighttime. Our deeper water reefs like 11B and 28C are still holding plenty of fish. Guys anchoring up and chunking at night are finding nice fish, and on the early morning bite. Sunrise bite around the island's been decent. It's been tapering off, around 7 a.m. But throwing spooks, small plugs, metal lip swimmers, stuff like SP minnows, rapalas, you name it. On the porgy side, porgies filled in everywhere, so places like Green's Ledge, 20HC, Kakini Reef, and then guys from shore are also doing good, places like Exit 18, Sherwood Island, and then the Norwalk Pier. And actually on the Norwalk Pier too, there's been a lot of dull bunker in our harbor, so it's bringing some bass in at night. We've seen some bass like 35 to 40 inches on chunks on the pier at night. So thanks and good luck.
And that's what I have for you guys, the reports this week. Hopefully they're going to inspire you to get out there. We've had some tumultuous weather. We've had a lot of fog, we've had a lot of wind, we've had a ridiculous amount of rain. But this week looks hot, but not so rainy, not so windy. So, take a day off, get down on the water. It'll be cooler down there. And there's lots of fisheries that are popping right now. So check one of those out and send me the pictures if you get out there and you get into some fish. And last thing I'll say, if you're not a subscriber to the Fisherman magazine, I highly recommend you head over to our website. That's thefisherman.com. We cover the entire region from Delaware all the way up to Maine, and every species and discipline you can think of in between. We've got fly fishing, surf fishing, boat fishing, offshore fishing, stand-up paddleboard stuff. We got travel stuff, going out to Pulaski or going down to Marina Pez Vela in Costa Rica. We cover it all. It's $30 for a year. You get 12 paper issues sent to your house. You get 26 digital issues sent to your email box, and you get weekly reports that cover that entire region. It's the best $30 you can spend in fishing. But if you head to the website and you're still not interested, at the very least, give us a like and subscribe here on YouTube and hit that little bell thing down there so you get a notification every time we post something new. I appreciate you guys for watching, and we'll see you next week.